Hi, DJ Tina here, host of HMTV Canada Easy. On the phone with me today is Joe from Rat Pak Records. Hi Joe, how are you? I know you're busy right now. We are stoked to have you at this time to complete our interview. Can you tell our audience what inspired you to start your record company, Rat Pak Records?
Well, there came a time when, back a few years ago, when I realized I wasn't going to be the next Eddie Van Halen or, a big rock star, so I kind of put the guitar down and just started booking shows, and it was obviously natural for me. And I decided, I'm gonna be that guy that wasn't around back when I was playing, and just be honest and work hard and support the bands and just take it from there. And one thing led to another. Before you know it, I was managing some decent bands, and all of a sudden I was into the label and just grown from there, pretty much.
What bands did you play with before starting your record label?
Oh, just crappy bands nobody ever heard of. It was like I was in a band called High Risk, and another called Armistice, and another one called Kickdown, which actually did pretty well, but, it was just an East Coast United States thing, We all have our 15 minutes of fame, as it were.
So I guess I've been there, done that, and tried everything of being a musician, and the experience working in the music industry for years is a huge asset and a valuable knowledge to have counseling new bands that seek record labels today?
Yeah, it helps that I have that background, but, I'm just more of a people person, and I know everything, I know the ins and outs of the industry, and not only that, but, what it's like to be in a band. It's just the same thing as a relationship. You got to work at it, and, it's a process, and sometimes even the best of relationships can be a disappointment. So you gotta work, within the confines of that, and know that, where you want to go and how you want to get there. And, a lot of it's just that. There's a lot of good bands that come and go, but they don't have the inner communication skills and organization to just keep it going and until they get there. And that's why you see them come and go, and you throw in the mix, a few heartbreaks here and there, and sometimes, bands drinking too much or drugging or something. Whatever the thing is, you just got to remember you're a family, and, you got a mission to do, and you put that above everything else, and, hey, you'll get there. I hope that made sense for a Sunday afternoon.
How does Rat Pak Records establish their name in the music industry, and what services do you provide?
As far as established myself, I just, I talked, but I also walked. I didn't just talk the talk, I walked the walk, and, just made things happen, and that's what it's all about, keeping your word and just making big things happen for people, and, that's what I do, pretty much. As far as what I provide for a band, it depends on a band. Some bands that I work with are self-efficient. They, take care of all their own recording and, everything else, and I just, help them out with promotion or whatever the situation calls for. Well, there's others that are, poor and can't afford to, buy themselves a pack of cigarettes, so, if it merits it, I'll jump in and, drop the cake on them, as they say, the money,
Has Rat Pak Records secured any distribution agreements for online distribution and pressing of CDs?
That's two different animals there. I have full online distribution on everything, from iTunes to Rhapsody to eMusic to you name it, I got it, and, as far as, replication and duplication of CDs, that's a completely different thing. I do that, and, or I have, have it outsourced or whatever, but yes, got full distro, and, when it comes time, if needed, if a band hasn't already, done their own CDs, I'll do them up for them,
Is Rat Pak Records endorsed with any musical manufacturing companies or retail stores?
A lot of the artists are sponsored by Jägermeister or Coffin Case, or, there's just, the list goes on, different strings, fader, drums, it's more individual. The label itself isn't necessarily sponsored per se, I let the musicians do that,
How does Rat Pak Records reinvent themselves to stay competitive in today's ever-changing society and entertainment industry?
The industry reinvents itself, and, we just conform to it, and stay innovative and come up with new ideas. We don't just have a label. Also manage bands, also do a weekly radio show, do live events, just all kinds of stuff. Just, don't put all the eggs in one basket and think that, if we release the CD and, store X, that, that's going to be our golden ticket. It's just, you just got to do many things. It's merchandise, it's, events, it's managing bands, it's, publicity, and it's, label, it's everything, We just do everything. We got the radio show that does great. That's on every Tuesday, called thebigrockshow.net, and you can check that out at thebigrockshow.net, of course, and, that helps a lot, too, having your own radio show. And, of course, it's picked up by internet and FM stations, so that helps.
Does your record company support and promote all genres of music?
Well, rock and metal, pretty much. Some think, they say, well, you guys are a metal label, or you guys are a rock label. Mostly people think we're metal because a couple of bands are heavy, but, it's just, I consider it a hard rock label. I mean, there's some metal elements to it, there's some rock elements to it, but, I just try to stay straight across the board. We do have another sub-label opening up that's going to be under us. That's going to be, strictly focusing on, just metal and stuff, and, that should be pretty exciting. A lot of that stuff will be coming out over the next few weeks, so, hopefully we'll be able to update you on that,
What do you offer musicians in a record deal according to their needs and wants, such as getting gigs and tours?
Well, again, a lot of the bands I deal with just book their own shows and tours, and, realistically, if a band gets signed by a major label, which is kind of rare these days, I mean, they're still out there doing their thing, but the industry's changing, but, to book a band on a tour, you need a lot of money. There was a band that had a similar name to a band that was on my label that went out there, and they paid, I think it was a couple years ago, they paid $9,000 a show just to warm up Godsmack, and they were, there's a couple warm-up bands that were before Godsmack too, so, they paid all this crazy money to get 40 or 50 shows bought on the tour, but, still didn't sell crap for CDs. I mean, nobody knew who they were, but, it's, well, I don't go crazy like that and drop all kinds of money on tour support, I take a different approach, and it seems to work, and that's just a steady, smooth progression of growth, and, that old chestnut, as they say.
Do you help in music production, such as recording, mixing, and mastering their songs?
Yeah, I mean, if need be. I've had some big names help out in the past, and as well as some unknown names, but, if a band is, in need, we can always work something out.
What's your solid marketing direct approach to promote your musical artist?
That's it's a little ambiguous because, it's everything, it's not just, like someone from a big label once told me, he said, Joe, he said, it's not putting out an ad in a newspaper that's going to make it for you. It's repetition. So somebody might see a band in an ad in a magazine, but then they hear it on the radio, but then they go to somebody's show and they see a postcard or a flyer, and then maybe they see a sticker on somebody's guitar case yet another day, and it's just a little bit of everything that adds up to success. It's not just one particular direction. It's a little bit of everything. And it's just there's MySpace, there's stickers, there's flyers, there's radio, there's interviews, there's everything. It's just keeping it all going. I mean, that's the only real approach, if you ask me, that bands should do, or labels or whatever. You got to get it out there, you got to get it heard. And you got to be 24/7 about it too. Until something breaks.
Have you ever given thought to produce limited editions of bands' music on vinyl for promotional purposes, such as concerts, special events, charitable donations?
Yeah, no need to print vinyl. I got a nice collection of it from the 80s, but as far as printing any vinyl, it's just not practical for me where I'm at,
Do you help bands with graphic art, web design, photography, CD compilations, replication, and duplication?
I do a little of everything. I'm a Photoshop junkie, so I spend a lot of time just making, pretty much all the websites that you see, 99.9% of everything you see is just stuff that I do. I want it to come out right, so I get crazy with it like that and just get my obsessive mojo going on and sit there for 8 hours and create stuff,
What's it like running your own record label?
It has its ups and downs. There's times when I think I'm on top of the world and, all kinds of money's coming in, and other times where it's not so glamorous, It's a hard job, and, you got to work at it, and you got to be willing to sacrifice everything for it, and life catches up with you while you do that. There's bills, there's, deaths, there's family matters, there's even heartbreaks, and relationships and everything else, but ultimately, I'm committed to what I do, and that's my number one higher power, it's to get the message out to the people of the bands I represent, and, make it happen. Winners make it happen, and losers make excuses, and I ain't a loser. Sorry, I read that in a magazine today, but, that's it, and there's a lot of times, too, especially I've grown so much in the last 5 years that, I can go into certain bars or events, and nobody charges me, and, everybody's all extra nice to me and trying to be, my best buddy, which is, that has its cool moments, too, but, a lot of people are just fake, but whatever, it's all good. I just take whatever comes, just keep moving it forward.
Do you think the music industry today is becoming more diversified, like a market of micro markets, that being of digital downloading and the buying of CDs?
Yeah, there's no doubt that, everybody, including the biggest bands out there in the world, have taken a hit on CD sales, and, I think it's personally the perfect market to be doing what I'm doing, because because I just create my own thing, and I don't look at what everybody else is doing. I just go forward, and I bring the message the best I can. It's been a lot of challenges along the way, a lot of changes in the industry, but I'm happy where it's at. Everybody's going to lose out because of illegal downloads and stuff like that. There's LimeWire and sites that just give everything for free, but ultimately, I just see that as the whole thing as a blessing. I don't see it as a curse and give up like a lot of labels do. I mean, it's the type of market where you can, the type of day and age where if you're a pioneer, you're willing to work hard, use all the tools that are available to you. You can have your slice of the rock and roll pie.
Can you tell us about your radio personality on the Big Rock Show?
Yes, I'm a complete idiot. I just get on there for 2 hours, and I'll have more often than not, I'll have some national names I interview, and I play some tunes, and then I just act like a complete moron. All my bumpers are just off the wall, and half the people think it's the funniest thing ever. The other half think I need some kind of therapy. So.
And you do spin your band's music that you're promoting through Rat Pak Records on your radio show?
Absolutely. And that was the whole point of doing it in the first place. And I did a couple of shows a year and a half ago. My buddy requested it. Like, yeah, you should be an online DJ. So I did a couple times, and I was just horrible, I thought. And, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to have some good bumpers. I'm going to have some really big names come on and just interview them on the show. And, pretty much theme it out. Everything that was cool, everything that is cool, everything that will be cool. And, just go with that, So I do a good mix, Well, some would say, but I know it's good because obviously, it's on Hard Rock Radio Live, but, it's also picked up by a few FM stations in the States, as well as 107.7 in Taupo, New Zealand, plays it, in syndication every Sunday night. And plus, I've noticed, just randomly, I went to a Testament concert a few weeks ago, and some kids were sitting in the next car, and all of a sudden I heard, my bumpers and me talking, and I'm like, what the? And I thought maybe somebody was spinning it on the radio, but in fact, I have so many iPod subscribers that, or iTunes subscribers, whatever, that these kids are like putting my radio show on their iPod and, just plugging it into their new radios, that they have in the cars and listening to it as they go about their day. And I thought that was kind of cool. I wanted to jump out of the car and be like, hey, that's me. But, I didn't do that. I was like, oh, that's cool. They're checking it out,
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, it's not, I'm not trying to pump my own stuff up. I'm just trying to get the word out,
Mm-hmm. Can you plug in your show times for the Big Rock Show and the URL address where we can tune into your airwaves?
Yeah, just go to the bigrockshow.net, and that'll tell you everything. The bigrockshow.net, and that'll give you times and everything. But usually, if you want to hear it live, I first do it online, and then it's syndicated to FM. So you can hear it when you come out to the bigrockshow.net. You'll be able to during 10 and noon Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays, you'll be able to hear a live streaming of my show right there. And that's the only time the player's turned on. Or you can just go to Hard Rock Radio Live or wherever else it's picked up. But a lot of people, they're at work and stuff, and they have firewalls going on from their company, so they just go to thebigrockshow.net and they can hear it.
Sweet. Where can our audience access Rat Pak record stores to buy CDs and band merchandise online through the internet?
Everything you need to know is at ratpakrecords.com, and even if you screw up on the spelling, it'll probably still go to my site anyway, because the correct spelling is ratpakrecords.com, but there's a few different variations of that. So if people accidentally spell it wrong or add the wrong letters, it'll come out. But ratpakrecords.com, and that'll tell you where all the retail locations are, and give you the links to iTunes and Rhapsody and online sales and all that stuff.
Before we wrap up our interview, do you have any last words?
I just made poop. That's not funny. That's that Big Rock Show coming out of me, that dude. I just want to say thanks and for having me on and for your support. And I know you work hard, and I know good things will come to you. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, I plan to. Don't worry.
That's good.
Thank you, Joe, for allowing our HMTV Canada Easing to interview Rat Pak Records. You rock.
Oh, thank you.